water is high in the area. So the system's going to be above the ground right now. So there's a few comments I had for them, and it's just such a slight grading issue, so small that really they need a little bit, just need a touch more cover over the system. So they basically have to pull the 98 contour down a little bit lower, closer to the D box. That way it's not so flat, and there's enough pitch over the system. That was it. So Paul Sonia is going to be updating that. Apparently they already, did they get my email, Missy? Because they sent the Form 9A.
Yes, I've got the, yes, they sent the Form 9A.
Okay.
Did I send that off to you? I can't remember.
You did. So that was that was the other comment I have. They didn't fill out the form, which is, it's not a big issue, but you know, it's, we hold the meeting, so we're going to make sure that they understand that there's it triggers a meeting. So,
could you please enlighten us what a Form 9A is, please?
oh, sorry, that's the local upgrade request, and that pretty much says they did their due diligence and looking around to make sure that they meet Title V as best they can. That's all the form is pretty much about. Specifically telling us what they didn't meet and the methods they went through in order to make sure that they met Title V the most practical extent possible for the repair.
I don't have, unfortunately, my iPad doesn't have a lot of battery right now. I hope I don't lose the emails. But I'm looking at your memo right now, and you touched upon it as far as increasing the grade to at least 1 foot of cover. And yet you said you want them to lower one side. I realize that's going to put more pitch into it, but it seems like that's two different things.
Oh, did on my email or what? Did I say it in my email? My memo to lower it?
No, I thought you just said it just now, to lower down to 98.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. That 98-foot contour, which is above the system right now, if you have the plan open, you can see it. It's they need to pull that down. They need to pull the contour down, so it's actually raising this. I'm sorry. It's confusing the way I referred it. I want them to grade more of the 98 contour, so it's over the system, and so it's up higher. So the grade is higher, not lower. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. That's all right. Okay, that answers my question then.
Right. So, because the way they show it right now, it looks like really flat over the system. Okay. You want it really flat over the system.
What, now, this is a revision that you want to see in. Are they going to revise the plan and resubmit, or is this just going to be handed to the installer with a note that says this is what you need to do also?
No, they're gonna revise and resubmit it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not a. I don't think it's a showstopper. I think they just need to correct it. I think the installer needs to know this, because if they have to bring in a couple more truckloads of dirt, that's going to be a cost on him, and that's got to be known before the installer gets.
Okay. Tom Fickner, any questions?
Well, I missed the very beginning, so I don't know if I missed any pertinent detail. But based on Tom's letter to us, a recommendation of what needs to be done, and based on what we have in hand for the plan, unless we want to make a condition from a vote standpoint, I don't think we can vote to approve it based on the plan in front of us, unless we're conditionally looking to approve it with conditions that a new plan be resubmitted with Tom's recommendations on a new plan. just so we don't hold up the process, I would vote to approve based on that guideline.
Yeah, we've done that numerous times, and that's what I would also suggest, that once it was resubmitted and Tom gave it his blessings, it would not have to come back to meeting, and Missy would be able to say, it's all good, contingent on Tom's approval. Alan?
I'm on board with that line of thinking.
Thank you. Also, Tom, did you, Tom Fickner, did you get clarification as far as your question last night about the name on the print?
I did, yeah. Missy got to me earlier this morning and confirmed for me who the new owners are on it. Yeah, thank you, Missy. Appreciate that.
No problem.
Thank you.
And the fact that the property did go through the, the proper routing process and there were no issues.
Could I have a motion, please?
Motion
Well, I will-
to,
Alan, could you please give us a motion?
motion to approve the repair at 18 Blackstone Street with the relief of 4 feet to 3 feet separation from groundwater, based on Tom Ryder's recommendations.
Contingent upon resubmittal of a new plan with Tom's blessing.
That's it.
And to reference at least 1 foot of cover, right, with the grade?
Agreed.
I'll second all that.
That's what the revision is. Okay. Very good. Next, Missy?
The next thing I have is COVID-19. I don't know if and then we go into the COVID-19 clinics. So I don't know if you just want to group that all together.
Sure. What's up with the clinics lately?
Oh, okay. I didn't know how how you want to do it. So, as you're aware that we've been trying to work with Uxbridge, and we were working with doing COVID-19 clinics at an abandoned school, Mikulski, with Douglas, Northbridge, and Uxbridge. Later to the game came Hopedale, and just recently as yesterday, Millville wants to join on board. The problem is the way that the way the vaccine is currently working. The state, if you want to become a vaccination center, the state wants you to be able to vaccinate at a minimum 750 people a day. That entails working 5 days a week. It doesn't necessarily have to be Monday through Friday. We did get clarification. It could be on Saturdays, and you're basically going to be running 10-hour shifts. We met with Jana Ferguson on Tuesday. She's the deputy assistant, and where where you originally would start off submitting your plans. It's a rather large undertaking. She liked the ideas that Uxbridge was telling her. We would bring on even more towns. Upton's interested, Sutton's interested, Bellingham is interested. The problem is the farther you go out, if they're closer to another mass vaccination site like Gillette or any in Worcester or anything in Springfield, the less likeliness this is going to get approved, because they brought in that Medway was interested in possibly the town of Franklin. And Jana automatically said, when you bring in Medway and Franklin, that's 10 miles or less to Gillette, and it won't be approved for that. So it's a work in progress. I haven't gotten anything new. I do know that Chief Kessler has some concerns as far as EMS and whatnot. They were going to do some observation. Before, it was going to be 1 day a week, rotated between the 4 towns, which seemed more manageable. But now I think he has a little reservations, but we haven't met with the fire chiefs just yet, because now you're talking 5 days a week, 10-hour shifts, and he's not sure he can commit into that. He also had, I'm sure you guys saw it, he sent it in an email. The other thing is the town of Millville has an extremely small department and volunteers. They only have, I think, 1 or 2 full-time people. And the towns of Sutton, Millbury, and I think it's Grafton, contract their ambulance service out, so they would not be able to help unless those contractors would be willing to come on board. There is a glimmer of hope, though, because hopefully maybe Johnson & Johnson will be approved by the end of the week. If that starts rolling, maybe because that is handled more like a flu shot than the special refrigeration and things like that with Pfizer and how Moderna has to be handled. So maybe in the future, we might be able to open up something close by, but our understanding that is if you are an able-bodied senior or a person with that's 65 or older or have 2 of the particular health conditions, they expect you to go to Gillette or Worcester or one of the mass vaccination sites. I will say that a lot of the health departments pushed back as far as dealing with the seniors of 65 and older. We all agreed that seniors, for the past year, you've been telling them to stay away from people, not to congregate, and then you want to send them out into the public. Some of them are skittish, some of them are concerned. You also, they're more comfortable with local health departments than going to some large place that they're not familiar with. So we did make sure that was voiced. We also voiced that there is not a large, there is actually no transportation out here. There's no T in this area. There's no busing. We don't have anything like that. So transportation is an issue. And they also voiced how it's not exactly practical for health departments to try and get seniors out to Gillette when you can't get a group of seniors to go at the same time. So transportation in itself would be an issue. So far that's where we're at as far as having any vaccine clinics. I'm hoping that, like I said, Johnson & Johnson, maybe that will open it up more to us to be able to work on something, but that's it. That's what I have for now. Andy?
Missy, I got a question as far as all that goes.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, those tones we were hearing, are there more callers on this call?
No, I just see it. So it's just 5 of us.
Okay, I didn't know what those tones were, but so 750 shots per day, that's a lot of nurses in 10 hours. Mm-hmm. We have a VNA that's going to work with us, and Ian has stated that they would be bringing in extra nurses. Mm-hmm. Uxbridge has their on-site nurses, and I'm sure I'm assuming they're bringing more nurses on. Are these other towns, such as Millville, which does not have large revenue or deep, availability of services, mm-hmm. Are they bringing anything to the table as far as manpower, women power to issue these vaccines?
I would say, specifically speaking about Millville, probably not. Millville, it has, a part-time, Lenny's also their agent. He's out, but I think Uxbridge has been helping them. They're kind of similar like us as far as we don't have a full-time agent, director, the staffing.
Do they have VNA?
Huh?
Do they have VNA?
Then they are run by the VNA. So it's the same thing. Upton, because Trish Parent from Upton was on the call, she would be bringing her resources, and so would Cheryl from Sutton bringing in her resources. Yeah. I know that they've been running some pretty good size clinics, and they would be an asset, but that's a lot of stuff that still needs to be worked out. How many nurses do we actually have to get shots in the arms, and what's everybody able to bring to the table? Some of these towns might not be able to bring much, and that's what we have to try and figure out.
Well, that's my question, and I'm certainly not shunning them. I'm just interested.
Yep.
Is Millville and Hopedale going to be freeloaders and just take advantage of the ability to get these, or are they bringing something as far as manpower to us also? I mean, do they have a VNA usage in the Millville and Hopedale?
I do know that Hopedale and Millville are part of the VNA towns, those 9 towns. The ones that would be Most of them would be VNA towns. The only one that wouldn't be would be Upton and Sutton.
Okay,
So I don't know how many nurses Ann would have. And then again, I don't want to, sound pessimistic, but there's also, is there going to be another addendum that comes in? We're still trying to figure out the first one.
okay, sure. And do you know if Millville and Hopedale are involved with salmon VNA?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so that kind of taxes this company,
Correct.
stresses them out. Okay.
Especially if we bring in Medway and Franklin, because those are also salmon VNA towns.
Oh, boy. Okay. Tom, do you have any thoughts on this?
Just a couple of questions. Missy, do you know if I know where Chief Kessler's, what his position is, and understandably so, if they're looking to make this a larger undertaking than what was originally anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Have the other towns, public safety expressed the same concern that we're expressing, do you know?
I haven't seen anything come in through emails from the other chiefs. I know on the other day when we met, it was strictly the health departments. They weren't bringing in the fire chiefs in yet because they wanted to see how many towns were actually willing to join on. And I think they have to figure out what can each town, as even just the health departments, can bring to the table.
Yeah. I saw where you had sent us forwarded us an email that came through from, I guess it was from Connor Robichaud. So I guess you folks had talked about this clinic, I guess what he's calling the Blackstone Group.
Yeah, it'd be the Southern Worcester County or the Blackstone Valley area. Yep.
And he made a comment that he felt that this group would be in a decent position to move forward with their clinic application. Just out of curiosity, if we thought the logistics could work with all involved, who would be spearheading that application, do you know?
It would be Aaron out of Uxbridge.
Okay. Have you seen it? Do you know what the application looks like by chance?
No, I have.
Just curious. Okay. It's a nice thought if we can do it, but I think the issue is going to be like our chief points out. We just have very limited resources, and we're not like a big suburban community. Like places that that are east of 128, like the Watertowns and the Burlingtons of the state. So
Right.
we'll do what we can do, I guess.
Alan, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see it go forward if it's something that we feel that we have the resources to commit to. As far as towns like you mentioned, Millville and Hopedale, maybe not being able to bring staff to the table, but they are bringing possible clients to the table, which is another part of the equation that we need in order to meet the criteria. So even though they might have limited resources, if we have to do 750 shots a day, we need clients that are willing to show up at the appointments and take the vaccine. So in a way, they are contributing. They're just contributing what they have available. So I would encourage, the boards of health of all the aforementioned towns to continue forward and see what we can contribute to our communities. Thank you.
Andy, I just want to point out one thing, that if this does take off, we would be a regional mass vaccination site. So the site would be opened up to any and all Massachusetts residents.
Okay, good to know, along the lines of what Alan just said.
Right.
I know that was a concern that was expressed in a letter that I think, Missy, you forwarded to us that went out from the Fire Chiefs Association, if I got that right.
Yep.
That their concern was that it would step outside by forming this kind of a venture. It would take away the localization element, and we'd probably end up with a lot of folks that would be outside our local domain, whereas our our primary concern would probably be trying to take care of our locals first.
Right.
Back to you.
Thank you. Missy, is this everything on this subject?
That's pretty much all I have to update you guys. If I hear anything or something comes up, I get emails, I'll definitely forward everything off to you guys and let you know, but that's the latest and greatest right now.
If you see something, say something. What do we have next on the agenda? The reason why I ask is we have Tom on board for the well issue, right?
We have Tom here for a couple of things, so I will kind of jump past the clinic and the we still need to talk
Yeah.
about the Vna Addendum, but we do have Tom here, Tom Ryder, our Board of Health engineer, to discuss two subjects. One, possibly revising of the private well regulations, and to discuss some options regarding septic systems and new construction in the wintertime, and how we handle inspections and sign-offs. So Andy, I'll leave that to you.
All right. Before we get too deep into this, Tom, this question is for you, Tom Ryder. Back to the Tanya Bedrosian incident on Dudley Road recent. I just want to make sure that I understand correctly, because I don't think that I followed right from the start. Did you tell us that there was no inspection on components after this, as the system was being installed? There was a bottom inspection, and then they installed it, and there was no component inspection, and then they backfilled. Is that correct?
So what happened was they called me out for, well, they should be calling Missy, right? So they called me out through Missy for the tanks and the bottom. And apparently they called and left me a message. I didn't get it. I didn't get the message until actually a couple of days ago. I realized they did call me personally, but you know, they went through the wrong process. They should have called Missy anyways for the final component. Now the components are the final components are just the the Oakson Perkrite system. So I saw all the components in there except for I didn't see the final test. So they do the pressure test to make sure everything's working. So when I told him, I said I talked to Rob from Oakson, and I said, why didn't you call me? And he said, he kind of was trying to say, oh yeah, well, sometimes the boards of health don't want to come out. I said, I don't know why you weren't called. And I said, well, I want to see it, and I want to see the alarm system working too. So I want you to run through the system. So he was trying to get me to okay, like the first closing. And I said, well, I'll talk, and we'll consider it, because I saw most of the system, but I'll consider it, considering that we might be doing a follow-up. I called him back to say, no, we're not going to do that. We need to do the final inspection. And we scheduled one last week. So it was conducted. Everybody came out there. Rob from Oakson, he installed the dial system up, and everything's working fine. So we did a final inspection. I believe it was Friday.
Yes.
Friday. I mean, the time is. It doesn't feel like it's only been 5 days, but it was Friday. So he completed everything. I had him dig up all the manhole structures too that I didn't see, and we checked those out as well, which is typically not a requirement, but I wanted to see how everything flows from the houses down, and he provided me pressure test documents that showing that the manhole structures are solid and not leaky. So So he
Okay.
did comply with everything. He did run around trying to get things done. But
So I misunderstood you, I guess, because I wasn't, whether it was not made clear or what, or I just didn't catch it or whatever, that this is a different type of system. Is this the same company that did the system at the drive-in? Is it the same type of system?
no, the one at the drive-in is a fast unit, which is
That's, yeah, okay, yeah.
fixed activated sludge treatment system. And that has pressure distribution as well. But the one that they have for this shared system is it's called it's a drip irrigation. So when they kick the pumps on, there's 3 zones. So pump number 1 kicks on, and it doses the first zone, and then whatever doesn't get dosed recycles back into the tank. And then the pump 2 will kick on. It will dose the second section of the system, and then zone. So there's 3 zones. So it will dose 3 sections, not at the same time, but individually.
Okay. So when you said final inspection, I was thinking, because I didn't realize it was new technology system, grading. So my question was, did you get to see the component? I'm trying to think how I want to say this, because all too often we have other installers that just take it upon themselves to just do it, and we're being pushed around in certain situations, which I don't like. And when you get a call directly from an installer, do you direct them back to Missy and say, I can't come out until you call Missy?
Yes. So I at least want them to have contacted Missy first.
Yes.
There are cases where I will call Missy and say they contacted me. So to go out there, I told them to contact you back. So yeah, I do want them to go to the right process. I just don't want to be running out, because I don't work for them.
Right. That's right. Thank you for that.
I want to do an inspection and approve something. No, it's like no. You go through the office. Missy will take a look at it and send it over to me, and then I'll let them know if it fails or passes, but and then let Missy know as well. So,
Tom, do you by any chance deal with any towns that have what we might call a checklist, a document of some sort where when a bottom inspection is done, like the card, like in Hopkinton, I have to have the card similar to a building card for Brian Besser.
Yep.
When the bottom inspection is done, he and the design engineer both sign it. When the component inspection is done, he and the design inspection, they both sign it.
yeah.
And the same thing with the final.
Funny thing you mentioned that. Funny that you mentioned that, Andy, because I was just pulling up the Hopkinton regulations, and also it's funny because I developed that card for Hopkinton.
Cool.
Yeah. So the answer is yes.
So that answers my question: is how do you feel about it, and do you like it?
Yeah, I do like the card, and it puts the onus back on the installer to maintain it, and also part of the problem too is back a long time ago, I used to installer would call me, and I would run out there, do the inspection, and then if I don't see him, that was just one component of my job. I was like, I didn't have time to call around. This before cell phones, by the way. So the next thing you know is I would tell the installer, if you don't hear from me, everything's fine. I'll be out there as soon as I can, but no more than 24 hours. So if you don't hear from me, everything's fine. Keep going. If you hear from me, there's a problem, and you're going to need to fix it. So they didn't like that because they, and I understand why, because, they're trying to schedule stuff and they don't know the agent, how the agent's doing. And is the agent going to 48 hours later going to say there's a problem and he's going to have to redig it up? And it's like, I get it. I don't want to ever do that to an installer. So, it's
too much left up in the air.
right. It's good to have the card. And if they're not there, leave it on the excavator, inside the excavator, and then that's what Hawkinton does. Leave in the excavator, they'll sign it, and then that they were there. Or you can prove it as noted. Say, scratch out another, few inches on the far side, whatever it could be. Just, I think it's a good idea.
Victor, do you follow what we're talking about? Do you understand this card issue that we're talking about?
I do, yeah. I'm familiar with it from a construction perspective.
So do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's a nice idea. Are you considering implementing it into our processes to be a little more efficient?
I do, because there's too many times where we get pushed around and systems are filled without actually having the bottom cleaned the way it should be, or a component backfilled when the components are filled and Lenny hasn't had an opportunity to look at it or whatever. It just gives more exactness to getting the job done correctly and accurately.
So I'm all for that. I think if we did that, it just, in all fairness to all the people we deal with, I just want to make sure that we should probably initiate a communication if we go
absolutely.
This. You know what I'm saying? So we're giving a heads up to everybody at least once, anyhow. Yeah.
And if we finalize this, I realize this is the first of the year right now, but we could possibly start with new licensure, which would unfortunately be next year, unless we felt we could do it midstream. We're not into our busy season yet, so it might be a good time to try and get it going. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm looking for the card right now. And Hawkinton uses the hard stock. I'm not sure, Missy, do you have the capability of printing the hard stock?
I should be. I can at least try and get it and do it. That's not a problem.
All right. So it's a two-sided card, and I can't find it right at the second. But it's a two-sided card. On the front is all the inspections and the sign-offs, and then on the back is a drawing, is a grid that the installer sketches, and he hands in the card at the end of the at the end of the system. Yeah.
That, unfortunately, Tom, is something that I totally disagree with. Maybe you can change my mind, but that I feel is nonsense. And from everybody I've spoken to as installers, feels the same way, because it's the design engineer's plan. They wrote the directions. We followed the directions. It's the design engineer who does the as-built. And 99% of the time, installers fudge the installer as-built, which the comments out there are not very kind. It's not really something that's warmed up to on the outside here.
Yeah, the intention of that was because if a septic tank was needed to be found and the homeowner had to go out, he would use like the tape pulling of the corners like the installer would, not the millimeter accurate.
Yeah.
So no, that's not a problem. It's actually a pain in the ass to print a two-sided hard stock anyway. So if you want to just do one side, but I think it should be hard stock so it can stand the weather a little bit better.
Yes, I have one here right in front of me. I understand what you're saying about putting it in layman's terms so that the homeowner can understand it without pulling an as-built out and being. But we tried a few years ago. I brought it to the table, and then we were going to do it, and then after much discussion, we decided against it. That was when Jim Malley was alive, and that's where I was first introduced to it. And we decided that it wasn't a good practice. But again, like you said, printing one side would probably be better.
Yeah, and that was, through discussions, it was like a roundtable discussion with engineers, installers, and the some of the health agents around the area. And nobody, so some of the I think one or two of the installers was one brought up is like, or it might have been actually a developer saying, the homeowners just need something underneath their kitchen cabinet, so they can, they don't need a bigger system. They were trying to discourage the size, increasing the size, minimum size requirements. So they're saying this is, the homeowner should be maintaining a system. They can't maintain the system if they're going to pull up a 24 by 36 sheet. They should have like an 8.5 by 11, plan that they can find where the septic tank is, and they can call the hauler. They shouldn't be calling me back.
Yeah, I see that point. I see that side of it. I do.
Yeah, but we, no, that's not. Yeah, that
Okay.
we can. I'll if I find that sheet, I'll or you can email a copy over if I can't find it. I'm going through the Hawkinson stuff right now, but it's not readily available.
Like I say, I have one right here. I've a system that's on hold because they closed their season on new installs over there.
Okay.
Tom Fickner, were you done with your comments?
Yes, yeah, I'm good on this subject at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I got two comments. Actually, one's a question. I'll go with the comment first. I have been retained by clients to install, let's say, a patio in the backyard or a walkway in the front yard. And some of them have been very prepared. They actually have some measurements with some ties so that if I can't see where the septic system is, I can use those ties to locate it. And some of them are really prepared. They even have, the depth, how much cover is over a pipe, how much cover is over a tank. And I have to say, it's saved me a lot of times, a lot of possible grief and aggravation, knowing exactly where everything is and not relying on looking up at the roof to see where the vent pipe is and to see where the dry spot is in the lawn and hope that I know everything. Not that I have heavy equipment, but I'm there to make the place look better, not make it a construction site.
Yeah.
My question is, for Bedrosian's project, this shared septic system, is there something on the deed or something that's going to make all these homeowners aware that they have the responsibility and have the understanding of what this system is? I do have a couple clients down on the old Cahill property that were very shocked in the last couple of years to find that they had no idea about the shared septic system that they have, and they started getting bills that they had to put money in the kitty. It'd be nice if this was not going to happen again. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
So
I'm just going to get the charging cord to plug my iPad back in. Tom Ryder, do you have some comments on what Alan just said?
yes. So they have recorded at the Registry of Deeds, and as part of their homeowners association, they're required to put the information of the shared system, what's required, operation and maintenance as well, and every 3 years to do an inspection. So when he supplied me the recorded information, I indicated to him that he forgot to add that they need an inspection every 3 years. So he went and had his attorney, they put an amendment on there. The last piece that we need, and this has to happen after the closing, that the homeowners sign understanding that they have a shared system as part of the closing. So that was a requirement as well.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Because I found, just through what I do, some of these people are buying these properties, and they really don't even know what a septic system is or a well to begin with. And then they find out that, they're behind in maintaining the shared system. So thank you very much. I don't know if it's something that the realtor should disclose, but I appreciate, you telling me how it works. Thank you.
Yeah, so there was a requirement on our permit for this one to say that the homeowners need to sign off on it. Now it's also on the homeowners association document, and it's spelled out. They need an operator. They've already hired an operator, but they need to keep money aside for that operator, and the expectation is it's going to cost about close to $4,000 a year for the operation in capital. So they got to understand that. So at the end of 3 years, they get the system inspected. They're going to be spending. They'll be spending that money. So that money is going to be dedicated for the maintenance, septic pumping, and any alarm conditions. So.
Very good. Thank you for the information. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Tom, a couple of questions. That document that you spoke about, the homeowner signs after the closing, that's to acknowledge that they acknowledge that there is such a septic system that requires maintenance, and we get a copy of, and there's terminology on that document that says that they know that the system needs maintenance, and we get a copy of that in our office for Missy to file.
So I didn't put together a process for that. So we can grab Daniel after this first closing coming up to make sure that he submits that. He still has to come back for each well as well. So the site is not complete. He still needs to give the quality and quantity reports for the wells. So.
Okay, so does that document exist? Is that something that's currently in place?
Yeah, let me see if I can send it over.
Okay. I didn't realize we had that in place. That's good.
Well, it's not a document. It's more of it's a recording. So let me see. All right. Well, when I find it, I'll send it over. Okay.
Okay. Back to I forget the name of the project, but across from Cahill's, they are way over on their 3-year maintenance. Is that correct?
I think Missy and I were talking about a shared system recently. Is that the one we're referring to?
Yes.
Missy, what's the name of that place?
Haywood Circle.
Cobbler's Knoll. Was that the development?
Cobbler's Knoll. Yeah.
The last
Okay.
The last Title V we have on record is from 2012.
So is there an HOA there?
There should be, but I don't know who the actual person is. That I don't know who their, for lack of a better word, like chairman of their organization or head leader.
Yeah.
I have no idea. So I would say we'd probably have to send a letter to everyone that is on that system.
How many houses are we talking on that system?
Roughly off the top of my head, probably like 12 to 15.
I think that's probably the only way we're going to get action, is to get the word out there, like you just said, unless somebody else has a different opinion that might be better. If we got some kind of acknowledgement letter out to all these households, as Alan stated, some of these people may not even realize that they have a shared system. They may be even the second or third owner of the property and should be enlightened. That may get us some kind of action from the HOA or somebody to say, okay, let's bring this up to date because we're in violation here.
Right, and
Jimmy?
the other second or third, we didn't get a Title V inspection, so they're required a Title V inspection. There's a
Oh,
way-
yeah, right.
Hey, Jay.
So we would know about that because of if there was a sale of a property, Missy would know about that.
Yeah, so, well, she might not, if the banks don't understand, usually the banks enforce that, so, if they don't understand that there was hey, this is a shared system, they need to produce a Title V inspection report. Then, we might not find out until we start digging around, so.
I stand corrected. I'm sorry, I do have one from December of 2019. I just saved it under something different in the file. And
So they're current then?
they're current, so and it's, ADC Septic was the inspector for that.
Okay, cool.
So I feel a little bit
All right.
better with that.
All right, that's
Alan,
good.
Alan, were you trying to get in?
I was, only to offer that I could reach out to one of my clients, maybe find out who is the head or the current head of the HOA. Obviously, she's sending her check somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have that information on record anyway, even though, it could change year to year.
Yeah, or as someone might move or something.
So if you like, I don't mind putting a call into this nice old lady.
Sure, please. Tom Ryder,
All
you
right.
were starting to say something?
Yeah, so, I think we just need to make sure that ADC or or the homeowners association has somebody like ADC on retainer to, go out there every 3 years, to do the inspection. Just so that just so it's current. That is a conventional system, so it doesn't require, the maintenance requirements that, the Oaks and Perkrite system does. But it'll still need to
Okay.
be pumped, it will still need to be checked for surcharging and so on. Vegetation, clean, make sure there's no trees growing on top of the system.
Very good. How did we get, Misty, reel me back in again where we started on this, please?
We originally started this, as far as septic inspections, to have something. Sorry, I just got an email from Uxbridge. For your inspections, also to discuss whether or not you want to put a moratorium on perk testing or septic installations for new construction. I know that was another conversation that we had.
Tom, how do you feel about that?
Say that again regarding limiting you're talking to me, right?
Yes, the season, closing the season for new constructions. Certainly repairs would be allowed, but
Yeah, so, I was just talking to Missy about that this week, and we haven't been using one of the permit forms that we have that we can utilize, and this might be the opportunity that we can use that permit form and that hardstock sign-off sheet at the same time, and indicate, regarding basically we can close the season, but there are cases that we have December, no snow on the ground, and the outlook for 2 weeks is okay. I'm not sure if you want to be able to get some wiggle room in that, because sometimes in October it's snowing. Usually it melts by mid-November, but I'm just wondering if there's a closing date, or whether you want to set a date saying if there's no snow on the ground and the 2-week forecast looks okay, you can continue. Other than that, then, as soon as we get snow on the ground, the forecast is sketchy like this time of year, we stop it altogether.
I would be in favor of something like that, weather contingent, like you said. Nowadays, with the weather forecasts that we have a pretty good handle on at least 10 days. So, and even if somebody was in the middle of a system, unless I think that they should stop, because we all know that it's not good quality work if you're working in weather like we've been having. So it would be, I wouldn't think that we should be able to say December 1st to April 1st or something like that. It would be contingent on weather forecasts up to the Board of Health, health engineer, health inspector.
Yeah, we could say permits stop on like December something or other, and then it'll be taken case by case from then till, I don't know, till the end of March or something like that. For new construction. Does that make sense? Like set a date like December 1st to like March 15th or something.
That they would be case by case
Yeah,
or scrutinization by the Board of Health.
yeah. And case by case means we know there's no snow on the ground and there's a 2-week window that allows for for them to process the construction.
And it's not just snow, it's also the cold.
Yeah, right. The forecast.
Extreme
Right.
cold. Tom Fickner, do you have some thoughts on all of this?
Tom sent me a short message. He would be stepping away for a minute, so you might want to ask Alan.
Okay, Alan.
I'm all for it. Whatever would produce the best results. I mean, I don't want to hold anybody up, but I know it's pretty mucky out there right now. I wouldn't want to be doing anything. So, every winter is different. Last winter, January 18th, we had our last snow. And, even the temperatures were fine. So, I don't know if I want to set a hard date, but I would definitely, warn that, winter weather can be difficult to, schedule, and they'd be taken on a case to case. Back to you.
All right, that's something that we could, I know Lenny was in favor of it.
Andy, Tom's back.
Okay. Tom, did you hear most of what we've been talking about as far as a season on septic system installations for new constructions? Did you hear any of that?
I did, yes. I had a minor accident that I had to attend to.
Did you wait?
Hey, coffee spill. Yes, I did. I got the gist of the conversation. Yeah, I understand, the concept, and I guess I'm kind of inclined to kind of follow Alan's lead. I don't want to create something that's going to impede economic progress when it doesn't have to. But at the same token, I guess I understand where where the concerns might be here. Our weather is rather not always straightforward. So, I don't think we can flat out say, hey, after a certain date, we're going to stop all, activity related to the subject, but maybe we can come up with a happy medium. Do we know of any communities, out of curiosity, for example, that use this kind of guideline, or that, Tom, maybe you're aware of, that already has this in place by chance?
Currently, Hopkinton does. I have 2 very large systems waiting for the weather to break so that I can get back in there. But they do it more stringent than we would want to do, as we just discussed. They do it with an actual physical date, start to finish, when the season is closed. We've been talking about weather forecasts and a case by case. What Tom suggested was, say, a start date of December 30th or December 1st till March 15th, whatever we come up with. Season is closed for new construction with every, a case by case for every single, that, in other words, somebody comes forward to us and pleads their case and says, hey, I have this new house under construction. We have the opportunity, a window of opportunity with good weather. Can we go forward? We talk about it and we say, well, in this case, it would be Tom or Lenny says, yeah, you got 10 days, get to it, get this thing buttoned up. That type of thing, case by case.
Yeah, they would have to prove that they can have the equipment, materials, and personnel capable of doing it within the time frame. Like, hey, I got to wait for my excavator broke down, and I don't want to hear those excuses. You got to make sure you have the materials, equipment, and personnel able to do it within the, say, a 2-week window. I mean, that makes sense to me.
Okay.
And just a follow-up, if I could. So what's the core reason behind wanting to do this versus just, something comes along and we just, respond to it in a case-by-case basis where we can and where we can't? I'm just trying to understand the core reason why a policy.
In extreme weather, whether it be severe cold or exceptional precipitation such as snow or rain with the cold, the quality of the system being installed would be in danger, because if you put pipes in the ground or chambers, plastic chambers, the new technology, and there's frost in the ground, now you install this system and then you do all the rest of the work and you cover it over, and as the frost thaws, pipes move substantially and the quality of the system fails rapidly. So therefore the system would not be a properly done project.
I like it. Good answer. Okay.
Yeah,
So
you have snow melt and mucky conditions, and next thing you know, the open area where the snow melt is bleeding into the bottom of the system, and it can be messy.
yeah, you get silt and mud into your sewer gravel and the system is compromised. What do you have more, Tom Ryder?
No, that was it.
Okay. So that's the reason for that. We don't have to vote on it tonight, but it's something that we certainly should be discussing. Missy, can we move on to the well issue, or was there more on the septic?
Nope, that was pretty much it on the septic. I think you guys pretty much covered what we had talked about, what I've talked about with Tom. The next thing would be discussing your private well regulations. I know I've had conversations with Andy regarding, especially with the subdivision up off of Dudley Road, their duplexes. They're using one well to service 2 properties. Go ahead, Andy. Sorry.
So currently, Missy, correct me if I'm wrong, we have a 5-gallon per minute regulation for a private well. My neighbor lives in half of a duplex. She shares the well with her neighbor. There are 2 pumps. They each own their own pump. The neighbor's house, not the second neighbor, had kids and was doing a lot of laundry 7 days a week. The well, in severe situations, summers, very dry summers, has gone dry. So therefore, the first neighbor suffers. So what we were discussing is, right now, currently our private well regulation states that the well needs to produce 5 gallons per minute per household. So if a well produces 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 gallons, then there should be a need for a second well to be drilled so they have their own. Tom Ryder, would there be a need to have a distance requirement if that was the case that we were going to try to enforce with a separate well if the well did not produce 10 gallons per minute, 5 for each house. Does this make any sense to consider that or no?
I would say you would probably want to be at least 10 feet from another private well. You know, when they set up to drill, they might need even 20 feet. You know, they're sharing the same lot, right? So, yeah, so it's probably more just so they don't damage the existing well as they're drilling the next one when they set up, because you can hit different points in the aquifer, you know, as you're drilling, you know, 20 feet over or 10 feet over. It's not in the overburden area. It should be in the aquitard or the confined aquifer area. So
possibly technically, if you had one well producing 8 gallons per minute, you drilled another well right next to it, the first well could possibly go dry if the second well was put in a better, more conducive location underground that would suck up all the water. One well could go dry. Is that correct?
Yes. So I have seen this happen before, where suddenly the person on the down gradient is producing like 100 gallons a minute, and they can't shut the thing off. And the ones up the hill are suddenly that's where all their water is going, because it's a pressurized system. So if you're going up the hill, technically, you know, that's going to be a higher elevation for the water to rise to, and a down gradient section could if it taps into the same location, could take that water away. So I have seen that happen once out of the thousands, you know, that, you know, over the last 15, 20 years that, you know, I've seen happen. But yeah, it is possible. It happened in Hopkinton. That's where it happened. They started to run dry. There was a whole subdivision that started to run dry. They had a hydrologist pick out find areas for better wellhead. So subsequently, we have a 4-hour pump test.
Yes.
And so the well should be producing at least 1,200 gallons and then recover. So that's a 5 gallon per minute, 1,200 gallons over 4 hours. That's, you know, that's 5 gallons per minute. So there should be storage in the well, and there should be some yield, some, you know, hopefully the well is yielding at least 5 gallons a minute, hopefully more, so that so when you're pumping, it doesn't change the wellhead doesn't drop. You know, it just maintains this, you know, whatever's being pumped out is being resupplied into the well.
Replenished. So
Yeah.
Does it make sense to consider the need for a second well to be drilled? I realize that in most cases it's probably around a $10,000 venture to drill another well, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on the depth, the hydrofracking, whatever. Does it make sense to have a requirement like that for duplexes, that if one well doesn't supply all the criteria, that they have to drill a separate well for the other side of the house? Does that make sense, or is that being too much?
Well, if you have no, I think it makes sense, and you know, especially if you have 2 4-bedroom, if you have a duplex with 8 bedrooms total. I mean, you're typically not going to have that. You're probably 2 or 3 bedrooms at the most each. But I mean, don't you want your own well? You don't. I mean, I would. I would not. I would not want to rely on my neighbor to, to protect the wellhead on his side of the property. For my water. The water that I drink as well. I would. I'd rather be able to know where my well is and, have it separated.
I'm guessing here, but in most cases, I may be wrong, but I'm guessing that if it was a duplex, more than likely it's going to be a builder that's building these houses, and that's why they want to cut a corner and do one well. But for the protection of whoever is going to be owning these houses, it's like you just said, they want to protect their own resource, such being their well. So, and the reason why this conversation's been triggered is because of the Dudley Road project that's going on up there and all that went on with those wells.
Yeah, I can't recall. Are those individual lots too, or wonder if I can.
Missy?
I'm gonna look up the plan.
I have the plan someplace too.
Although it's like 3 pages, 5 pages long. Hold on. I know they look at them as condos or I can't remember. I'm sorry.
I have the set. Hold on, I'm opening them up.
While you were both looking for those, Tom, Victor, do you have any comments on such a suggestion?
No, not at this point. Not at this point.
Okay, thank you. Alan, do you have some thoughts on this?
I know we've touched on this before about a property and a property owner having control over their well, possession of their well. So I'm sort of along those lines of thinking. However, in this situation, if they're condos, 2 condos on a single lot, so they share the deed, I could see how someone could argue that, where it's one piece of property. But I believe, along with our discussion, that, and along with what Tom Ryder is saying, that you should be in control of your source of water, especially where it's so precious. Back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Tom Ryder?
I'm looking at the plan, and I believe it is one lot, one huge lot with multiple. One well per duplex. It looks like, and
He does already have that?
yeah, he's showing proposed well, proposed well, proposed well. Yeah, this is part of the subdivision, not the subdivision, the condo plans that he put together.
Missy, I thought there was a conversation about shared wells up there. That's what triggered this.
Yeah.
Yes, because so you have, I think it's 8 buildings with two units to a building. So one building has one well that will then
Okay.
service 2.
That's what I thought.
But they're not like individually owned lots, like like across the street from you or anything like that. It's one large piece of land, and then each section is kind of, for that particular building, you have your common area and whatever, but everyone's got the common septic system, and then each building has 2 units and shares one well. I don't know if I made that more confusing or not.
No. So basically there are 2 residences per building, 2 addresses, 2 families, so on and so forth, correct?
Correct. And they're 3 bedrooms each. And I
Okay.
don't know, Tom, I don't know how these things work, but would there ever be an opportunity for a unit to add on another bedroom?
No. So
Okay.
as part of the homeowners association, that is actually spelled out in there. They cannot make any modifications. In fact, I mean, if they want to do modifications to the outside, they need approval from the homeowners association. But internally, they cannot make modifications to change the bedroom count.
Okay.
They can't do an addition. In other words.
So if they can't do an addition, often people just make certain rooms bedrooms. That could happen without our knowledge, correct?
Yeah, they would have to do it without the homeowners association knowing about it too. So.
Yeah.
And the building department. So.
It's been done.
Yeah, so if they did one well for the whole site, they would throw them under the DEP's requirements for public water supply, because it'd be more than 26 units.
Yeah, but that's all the units on one well.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that's probably an alternative for them. You know, that one well needs an operator, needs someone to test it every few months for at least for bacteria, and it will have a wellhead protection area at least 100 feet. You know, that's the alternative these people can go through, and that will show just as much protection as if the individual has their own well.
Tom, does that change with this being a 40B?
So right, yeah, no. So if since the 40B, they could ask for a waiver from all the local requirements.
But they can't get waivers when it comes to public health or public safety when it comes to a septic or a well, right?
For this, yeah, from the state regs, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, they don't. It's not carte blanche. I mean, they have to request the waiver for like a local requirement, and then the ZBA has to decide whether they're going to grant the waiver.
Right.
So, and
How many units are there currently up there, Missy?
16.
16. So
Yeah.
a PWS doesn't really seem like it's going to be an option.
No, it's not, because they've already pulled the well permits for all of the buildings.
Not only that, but the amount of people for one well.
Correct. You'd have to have someone who knows about aquifers and all that other stuff and find out where the water would be even possible over there. Which
Yeah.
I like.
It doesn't have to be one well either. They can do it as like a
well field.
Yeah, they can have like three wells within like 20 feet of each other. If that was the case, but right.
Right now, I think it's just this is more something for you guys to think about, mull over, see how you feel about making any changes and what changes you want to make, just like when we discussed the septic.
Okay.
It's difficult figuring out well yield. You know, you have well yield and storage, and confined aquifers that produce a good amount of water versus suddenly wells that would produce and suddenly going dry. It's always difficult to figure that out. I mean, you need someone who studies the area, studies the maps, and does testing. So.
Okay. So my basic thought on this was, again, if there's 2 units per building and there's one well and it doesn't produce 10 gallons per minute and the storage, then we would put into our regulations, if in fact everybody was in agreement over time, that we discuss it and say, okay, you know what, this is right. we should have 2 wells in such a situation for new constructions. If that's the basic gist of what I was suggesting, and see how everybody felt about it.
What does it says in, does it say in the requirements that, that we need, 5 gallons of, 10 gallons a minute? Where does it say that? Oh, hold on.
The regulations just state that I believe it's a 5-gallon test for a well. It doesn't get involved when it's a duplex or a triplex or, anything like that.
Which it should, shouldn't it? That's my point. It's
Right.
5 gallons per household.
Yeah, so, yeah, you should show that you have, actually, I'm reading the Hopkinton requirements. We did a bunch of studies for this one where, what did we say for supply? The well, wells that cannot pump at least 2 gallons a minute in the last 30 minutes. Wait a second, that's not it. We have that you must.
So I'm reading in the Mendon regulations. It said well pumps and water storage equipment shall be selected and ensure that the water supply is to be adequate. A minimum a yield of 5 gallons per minute for 4 hours is required. It says when the pump test is performed, a representative of the Board of Health or its agent may observe the initial startup. Following the pump test, the well must show it recovered within 85% of the pre-pump static level within 24 hours.
Yeah. So basically, at the end of the 4-hour pump test, they must be pumping at least 5 gallons a minute. Because if you dig down 100 feet, if you dig down 100 feet, that's excuse me. Over 4 hours, you're pumping 5 gallons a minute. That's taking all the storage out of that well and the surrounding area. Like 3 or 4 times the volume that So it's being resupplied, and after the end of 4 hours, if it's not pumping 5 gallons a minute, then it fails. And then they have to come back the next day, and it's got to have recovered by 85%. That would be the true test that you're getting at least 5 gallons a minute yield.
My problem with this description is that it does not state per household in the terminology.
AJ?
Right? Yeah, go ahead, Alan.
Your point is well taken, and we all know that wells change over time, sometimes for the better and sometimes not. So it sounds as though we need to consider adding almost a what if situation. If the well is going to service more than one household, then the standards need to be whatever they need to be. And that would cover this situation where we have 2 units on one well. That would it could still drill one well if it could meet the standards for more than one family, more than one resident. Back to you.
Correct. That's exactly what I'm looking for. My suggestion. Okay, so again, along the lines of we don't want to keep beating a dead horse all night. I think we've had a lot of information to think about. this should come back up again for conversation, and we can keep working on it like we will the septic. Is everybody in agreement, Tom Fickner? Hello, Tom? He's gone. Alan, you in agreement?
Go ahead, Alan, you go
I
ahead.
am.
Okay. Tom Fickner?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again, Andy? I missed that last part.
Well, we've come across with a lot of information this evening, just like with the septic situation, and we all have to think about this, and we can talk about it again at a later date. But for this evening, I think we've come up with a lot of information and should move on. Is that what do you think?
Yes, I think based on what's come forward, I think there's going to need to be a need to kind of let it set in and kind of look at it a bit, and then on a follow-up, meeting call, maybe we can make some concrete directives as to what we want, how we want to modify.
Thank you. Tom Ryder, do you have anything else to add on this subject for where we're standing tonight? We're not going to make any decisions, but as I said, we've got a lot to chew on, all of us to think about, and come back again at a later date with some more discussion on it. Are you good with that?
Yes, I was just skimming through the regs. I'm not seeing where the 5 gallons is. Perhaps I'm missing it, but yeah, like you said, like you guys are saying, it should be clarified just so that there is the knowledge of yield versus storage. Now, I think the well pumpers do typically do a pump test, but you want to make sure that it's in the regulations that that they're doing at least a 4-hour pump test, and they're at least trying to pump 5 gallons per minute out, and then coming back for determination of it recovering 85%.
Okay.
So that's a standard right there per house.
Very good, thank you. Missy, do you have something to add on this subject, please?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so we can move on to the next subject of conversation. Missy, are we going to the VNA thing next?
Yeah, the last 2 things on your agenda is the Vna Addendum. There was we got some wording back from
Yes.
and I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. It's kind of last minute. And then the other thing is for you guys to discuss. I sent you guys just a quick letter. I don't know which direction you guys want to go, but we need to send a letter to E.L. Harvey saying that you want to extend the contract.
My point is, if Tom Ryder's all set, I just wanted to thank him for joining our meeting. Thanks as usual, Tom. You're a wealth of knowledge, and thank you for everything that you bring to our table.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Okay. So let's take the VNA thing first, Missy. Is that good?
Yep.
Okay. I'm reading the addendum. Has everybody had the opportunity to read the addendum? Tom Fickner?
Yes.
Yeah.
Alan has too. Good. So my first question was, oh God, I had it when I read it earlier this evening. Tom Fickner, could you start, please, while I refresh my memory? I didn't want to get sidetracked while we were talking on that. Are you up to date on this? What do you think?
Yeah, upon review, I have the addendum up in front of me, the revision that Cynthia sent across. It definitely it makes more sense than what was presented initially. So, I think this is a good format, and I think it covers the concerns that we had in terms of opting out down the road, irrespective of what the state may or may not still consider a state of emergency for the pandemic. So if we find ourselves in a position where we think we don't need that kind of service, so that for that extra money, there is an opt-out element in there, so that's good. So I think this is a good revision of that addendum A for what Salmon was looking for. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Alan, how are you feeling about this?
I had an issue with the line, in addition to current services provided under the contract, Salmon hereby agrees to provide the following additional services to the town commencing on December 1st, 2020. To my knowledge, we're paid in full to December 31st, 2020. So in my opinion, that should be January 1st, 2021. The only other issue I had was I want to know who the dedicated nurse is and how we can reach them if we have to. Also, I might be asking a lot. I'd like some feedback from our dedicated nurse. Without us having to always reach out to them. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
I agree with that latter part, and it should be a regularly scheduled thing. Whatever the date or time, whether it's email, whether it's phone call, something to keep in contact with Missy and keep us informed of what's been done, what to expect, nothing to report, something like that. I think that would be a great thing. The line you read, shall provide the town with one dedicated COVID support nurse at a monthly fee of $3,500 in addition to nursing support services. This is going to be, and from what I'm reading, is another nurse that we're going to get in addition to what we already have. Is that sound right? Or is it just one nurse doing more jobs? Does anybody have any thoughts on that? Am I reading too much into
I
it?
think that's an unknown. I guess they use the term dedicated, but that doesn't necessarily mean it could be the same person. To be honest with you, I've been in situations in business where a company might say they're providing a dedicated staff or dedicated individual, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be consistently the exact same individual throughout. If you know what I mean, that could be a possible variable. And the only we'd know is we'd have to ask them that point blank and get that information. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a little bit different than what I was thinking. And if they change nurses every week, that's fine. But what my thought is, are we getting one specific section of VNA, whether it's specific to COVID and that's all they work on for us is COVID, and then we get the regular support services, the blood pressure clinic and everything that they do for us. It says in addition, but I don't know if I'm coming across correctly here, but I find a little bit of a frustration with this terminology and this pricing schedule.
AJ?
That goes to what we wanted to do, with regard to trying to get information from Michelle. And we were kind of in agreement, I think, temporarily to kind of hold off on reaching back to her. So I think this addendum A revision just basically is a structure change to what was presented. But maybe now, because we have this structure change, if we all agree it's a good structure, I think we now still have to go back to Michelle and say, what do you mean by dedicated? And you need to define it before we can sign an addendum.
What is this dedicated person or group of people going to be doing for us?
All right. Alan, sorry.
Well, if I'm reading this correctly, it says provide the town with one, ONE, dedicated COVID support nurse So to me, that means an additional, not our regular contract. That means one additional support nurse. And, other than the fact that I'm really not on board with this whole issue and don't think we should be held up for $3,500 a month, Mendon's in great shape. If you do the math, let's just say $35 an hour is what they're, billing this nurse out at. And I may be low. I mean, they are professionals, they are licensed, but let's just say $35 an hour. That's 100 hours a month that this person should be dedicating to the town of Mendon. That's 25 hours a week.
Alan, being in business, I'm sure you understand the behind the scenes costs. There's liability insurance. There's a lot more than just their hourly wage.
No, I agree, but I was just trying to do some simple math to come up with how they come up with $3,500 per month. And like I said, I am reading one dedicated COVID support nurse. So I'm expecting an additional nurse above and beyond our regular contract that is going to report to us, or that we can reach out to them and find out how we're doing.
And if you go 2 words past the money figure, it says in addition to what we're already getting. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Alan, you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just backing up what you're saying, because that's how I'm seeing it too. It's like we're getting an additional person, another person above and beyond what we're getting, what we have already. Okay. All right, what are you guys thinking about signing this? Anything?
Well, I'll go back to my previous statement. I think we still have questions. So I think it's nice that Cindy took the original addendum that Michelle provided from Salmon and reorganized it and structured it and phrased it, I think, a little bit more prudently from incorporating the town's perspective and liability in the process. But we still have unanswered questions that it seems like Michelle doesn't want to answer. For example, define dedicated, and what does the $3,500 go to? That detail that seems to be eluding us all. So the question is, if we want that information, I believe we need to reach back to either Michelle or somebody in the Salmon family and get that information so we feel comfortable about actually signing this addendum. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Missy, to Alan's point about the date, December 1st, 2020, was his statement correct, December 31st, 2020, and it should read January 1st, 2021. Is that correct?
I would agree with Alan. I think if all the back and forth with Michelle and all the emails, that $3,500 was from, whether it was from July, October, September, whatever, it was until December 31st of 2020. So this new addendum, I agree with Alan, should be dated for January 1st, 2021.
I agree also. Okay. So go ahead, Missy.
The only thing I could say, maybe if you guys wanted to add into your addendum language, we used to get, it was quarterly reports. Maybe you'd want a monthly report with your bill, and they would say exactly what they did for the VNA for that quarter, whether it was blood pressure clinics, public health information calls, and how many of those they had, what the hours were, like with the blood pressure clinic, how many attendees. Maybe you should say something that you want a monthly report of all activities regarding COVID, submitted with the monthly bill. I don't know. It's just an idea.
I like it. It sounds good. I can just envision it now. Nothing to report, $3,500.
Right?
Tom, could you, I like what you said. What are you thinking about for a plan of action on this? Send it back with changes?
Well, you know, this would be the addendum. I would say present this to Salmon, that upon review of the addendum presented, we have created a revised addendum A to reflect your request that you're presenting to the board. However, there are concerns here and details about some of the information that we would like some specific answers to. And Michelle, if you're not able to provide those answers, who can we speak to? That's what I would do.
Do you feel like typing that all up so we can get it together?
Sure. Alan, what do you think?
Tom, I'm on board 100% with that. With a few minor corrections to the addendum as far as that date is concerned, I would be on board to sign it, provided we got a little more information. Like I said, I along with you, I really want to know who my dedicated support nurse is. I mean, we're very fortunate to be green right now, and we're very fortunate that everything from hospitalizations on down the line are trending in the right direction. But I still want what I'm paying for. Back to you.
And in that thing that you will type up for us, please, Tom, would be some language as far as, like Missy said, along with your monthly bill, a report, please. How many of what everything you did.
Okay.
All right. Very good. Should we move on to the Harvey bill? Okay, everybody?
Yep.
So.
So, as you guys are aware, the current contract with Harvey technically expires on June 30th of this year. In the bid and in the contract, there was a stipulation of 2 one-year extensions to the contract. But we need to put something in writing to Harvey to let them know that you want to take advantage of those extensions, or at least one extension, by sending a letter. I just threw something together real quick to kind of give you guys some ideas on when the contract ended and what the dollar amounts and the timeline for the extensions would be, which is obviously July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022, and then July 1st, 2022 to 23. The dollar amount is, I forgot to put the second year dollar amount. My bad. But the first year it'd be $27,818. So however you guys want to do it, I just, want you guys to be able to send something to Harvey in time, so that they can agree upon it too. Andy?
My first thought about this was, and I expressed it to Missy, see what you guys think. Although more than likely we will be extending for both years, at this time, I'm thinking that we should extend for the 1 year first, and then a year from right now, do it again in case something changes. Nothing probably will change, but that leaves it open-ended up for us a little bit, because if we extend with both of them right now, that kind of locks us in. I don't know that it's a good thing or a bad thing. If you guys feel that it's a good thing, then let's just do both years. But I'd like to hear what you guys are thinking. Tom?
No, I like that thought. 1 year at a time, as long as Harvey's getting the confirmation from us, I think that's fine. I don't know that they have an expectation that we would have to approve both years at the same time. But I like that idea of having a little flexibility, and Actually, Missy, you caught it before I mentioned it. I just was going to say we just should add in that amount for that second one, but it's going to be a moot point if we do decide just to reference the first year only. Mr. Chairman?
Alan, how do you feel about that thought?
I also noticed the dollar amount missing for year 2. But I'm with your line of thinking, where they're 2 separate issues. They're 2 separate 1-year extensions. I would, we obviously want to go for next year. And, discussions amongst ourselves, discussions with recyclers, with Mike. We know that the trash world is changing. And we still have that other 1-year extension to go to. But, maybe if we're lucky, when we go to renew for the second year, if we find that's what we want to do, maybe, it would be a bargaining chip to, possibly add a further extension or renegotiate, only because we know that the end of what we're paying for trucking and what we're paying for disposal is going to come quick. And it would be certainly nice if we could soften the blow and make it a more gradual thing. So, renewing for 1 year now and leaving that 1 year on the table, I'm in hopes that maybe it would help us make a more gradual increase on the users. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, the price is already figured in. Is that correct, Missy? It's already a given.
Yeah, they already put in the set price for the 2 1-year extensions.
Okay, so I think we're all in agreement of losing the terminology from the money figure, starting with the word and the second year. Lose that line, and then we'll go with what we have. If in fact Harvey, to Tom's point, if in fact the Harvey family wants us to do both years at this time, we can certainly do it. It's not going to hurt us. But it was just something that I was feeling that maybe, like Alan said, maybe we don't know what the future is going to bring. Maybe there'll be a change in the company. Maybe there'll be some kind of a bargaining chip that they might want to suggest to us. Who knows? So we're all in agreement on that. That's good. The recycling is part of it. I had a conversation with Mike. He's doing well, by the way. I don't know if you guys know it. He had some surgery and he's out of business for at least 8 months. Do you guys know that, Tom?
Yeah, I think he alluded to that in our previous call that we had him on. So I'm glad he's doing well, and I look forward to seeing him back in action. Does that mean so we can't call him at all and bother him? Is that the deal?
You can certainly email him. He has his laptop at home and he responds to emails. He's doing better, but he's got a long road ahead of him. Alan, you're aware of this surgery? It was a short.
No, I'm not. For some reason, that went right over my head, and 8 months is a long time. If you have his address, maybe we could put some trash at the end of his driveway. I don't know. Anything to cheer him up.
We have loving friends
No,
at the Board of Health and Mendon.
I'm glad he's doing well, but I was not aware of his health situation. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
He was working on the what do you call the truck that picks up the beds and the stuff on the side of the road? Oh God.
The bulk pickup truck.
Bulk pickup. Thank you. He was working on the bulk pickup truck, and he swung around on the body and pulled his shoulder and tore some of the ligaments. So they did surgery. He's going to be okay. The outlook is good. He had a great doctor, and he won't be able to drive for, it's a long time. I forget all that, but he's going to miss motorcycle riding season with us this year, and he's fortunate at his age to be able to get it fixed. Working for a company like that, he's going to be okay, but it is a very, very long road to recovery. He's in a lot of discomfort, but he's doing okay. I talk to him on a regular basis. I can get his address if we want to send him a card or something. I know it's Wallem Lake Road. What was the recycling. Currently, just food for thought, something else for us to think about while we're not doing anything. Currently, people like myself, I have a dumpster. I don't subscribe to the trash program. Janice doesn't either. She uses my dumpster, but we both put our recycling out. And as we've discussed, that may be coming to an end at some point. And in one of my discussions with him, I asked about, this is just between the town, I'm sure, that really doesn't include Harvey, but I wanted to get his thoughts on it, a separate fee for recyclers only, because there's roughly, round numbers, roughly 500 people in town that do not subscribe to the trash program. How many of them actually put out recycling currently, we don't know that. But it's maybe something to address, because we have to have a recycling program. So it's just more to confuse us, more to talk about. Just a thought, a separate fee for a recycling only.
So Andy, you and I had discussed it, and as far as the billing, I think it's something, if it's something that you guys really want to do, I think it's feasible. We would just have to rework the trash bill where you would have, you would have to have one line would have to be trash and recycling, and one would have to be just recycling. You couldn't just have a third one that said just trash. But
Right.
it's doable. It's something that we can work on if that's the direction that the board wants to go to. But I would just suggest that if that's the direction you do want to go, we do it where we've got a good amount of lead time between billings to inform people of the changes, when it's going to go into effect, and how it's going to work. That's just my 2 cents, Andy.
And I totally agree with that, because we all know how lost people get. That's good. All right.
Just a thought, Andy.
Yes, sir.
So if we're considering, if I heard right, potentially a fee toward the recycle aspect, did I hear that correctly?
But it would be, currently we have, say it's $200, it's 213, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Say it's $200 for trash and recycling, the total package. That's what they get. People like myself that do not subscribe to the trash program, I have other means. I have a dumpster here that I have picked up by the guys in Northbridge, Berkowitz. So I also recycle. So therefore, I am not part of the trash program. As Missy stated, we would have 2 lines for billing. One would say trash and recycling. Then the next line would be recycling fee only. And that's the bill I would get, is to pay a small fee. Notice how I say small, because it's pertaining to me. I only want to pay a little bit to my recycling. Then that would be a separate bill for recycling only. And unfortunately, it would be another list for fill.
Would the impetus here be monetary in nature for doing this, or is there another core reason?
Yes, because this would be at the end of the 2nd year contract. I don't know if you remember when Mike was on our call, he told us that there is going to be, Milford currently is paying $100 a ton to get rid of their recycling. We made a good choice 2.5 years ago with the one that we chose. Other towns are paying a lot of money. They're paying more for recycling dumping than they are for trash dumping. So this would be, and I guess I forgot to say that part, and I'm sorry. This would be for the start of the at the end of the 2nd addendum. So we have 2 years that we're already locked in with the program that we have. At the end of the 2nd year, that's when we would start implementing this small fee, surcharge, whatever you want to call it, unless something changes along the road. But there's just a thought to offset, because if they're going to start charging us for recycling, then we have to take a little bit of the load off of the subscribers.
Right, okay, that makes sense with the timeline. So once this contract is kind of done, I
Yeah,
see the
about that.
thought there. Now, also too, I guess when this contract is done, we'd be re-entering, I guess, contract negotiations potentially again. And so maybe even as a thought, along the same idea, maybe something in what could be a new contract with Harvey, assuming we stay with them, could factor that in possibly as well.
Yes, that's when it would be addressed.
Okay, meaning that if we could address it without creating a separation on a bill to itemize, if you will, or to create a separate list, if somehow it could be put into the contract, so we're accounting for the financial side of things. Although then it raises the question, are we potentially just tacking it onto, we have a percentage of people who are paying for everybody, but that's kind of the way it is anyway, to be honest with you.
That's right.
Andy, I think it really depends on how is your contract going to be structured the next go around. Currently, right now, if your contract in 2 years is a continuation of what you currently have, you're fine. You can just keep going as is. But if Harvey says, you know what, it's costing us, a huge amount of money or it's not feasible for us to whatever, and you're now going to get not only your wheelabrator for tonnage, but you're going to get a recycling bill for tonnage. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it the correct way, but that's when I think you would have to take a look at those who don't participate in the trash program, but do recycle, because your recycling for tonnage for trash is going to be a lot less than what the tonnage for your recycling is going to be. I don't know if I explained that right, but.
You did, thank you. And that's exactly what we faced when we were presented with the contract 2.5 years ago. They gave us the choices, and remember, Republic gave us these choices also, and he lied to us. But we chose for this option to pay a little bit more up front, and we locked in, and we made a good choice because of the way the market has changed. And Milford did not go along with the same program that we did. They opted, that's what it was, the paper. We opted to let them keep the paper, and that would absorb the recycling fees. Whereas Milford said, we want to keep going with the paper money to us. Well, that went away, and now they're paying $100 a ton to get rid of the recycling. And certainly that's when it would come up, is at the end of the 2 years extensions that we have, negotiations. And if nothing changes, as Missy stated, if we still have a good plan and a good relationship and a good offering from the Harveys, then we can stay where we are, and my recycling would be on the backs of the subscribers and nothing would change. This is just something to have in place in case we need to.
Excellent. I'm on board.
Right. I'm sorry, Tom, I didn't give not enough clarity, but now I think we have. Alan, do you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, AJ, I remember our pricing a little bit differently, other than giving up the paper. The paper had really gone down to almost nothing, but I thought we agreed with Harvey to pay a little bit more for the trash hauling. Up front, we sort of paid a fixed rate versus a variable rate. And that's how we managed to weather the storm on this whole recycling thing. That's kind of, just a mute point, but that's kind of how I remember it. I guess the bottom line is we made a good decision on behalf of the users.
Yes.
However, I don't know if we need to address this recycling earlier than when contract actually renews. Because right now, we're all well aware that the users are paying for all the municipal pickup, Parks Department, Town Hall, Police Department, etc. We've
And that
discussed
upsets
this
me
before.
really bad.
And technically, the users are paying for the trucking portion of picking up someone who just recycles. So we're offering them a free service that really isn't free. So, maybe this is, we sort of, whether or not we wait 2 years or not, we sort of maybe need to start moving in that direction just to take some of the burden off of the users. And because, again, just picking up recycling isn't free. There's a trucking cost involved. Picking up the town's trash at all the different dumpsters that we provide really isn't free to all those departments. So we sort of maybe need to be moving slowly in the direction that you're talking about, but we might need to start now. Back to you.
You just triggered a memory that I have. We had a meeting in the meeting room, Missy's office, and it was at the beginning of the pandemic when Kim was there and Chris Burke and a few others, and the subject that you just broached, the municipal dumpsters, was briefly talked about, and Kim kind of snapped and said, this is a no-brainer. This can be done at contract renewal. We're at contract renewal right now. Do we want to change the addendum for the municipal dumpsters, or do we want to wait? Because that would relieve a huge amount of pressure on the subscribers to make every entity that has its own budget, police, fire, senior, parks, everybody has their own budget, highway, they all have their own budgets. They all take care of their own trash now. Those bills, all those dumpsters, all that tonnage comes off of the subscribers. That's what I would really like to see someday. She said it was a no-brainer and it was to be done at contract renewal time. This is contract renewal time. I don't know if we can change the addendum at this time, or do we have to wait 2 years?
Well, I would call this not so much renewal, but this is an extension period that we're approaching as opposed to a renewal period. So
Right.
I would imagine that Harvey wouldn't expect any changes in these one-year options. They're just asking if we want to extend what's currently in place, but you do raise a valid point about those municipal dumpsters. I just don't know that we could incorporate that as part of this extension confirmation. I guess we could ask.
Andy?
Missy?
I would not do that at this time. The simple fact is that means that's kind of renegotiating, and that could open up a can of worms you're not ready to do yet. It is an extension of the existing contract. So I would just be careful as far as sending any addendums, removing something or doing something different could make them think that you want to renegotiate parts of it. And then they would want to renegotiate parts with you guys. Just an idea.
Yeah, that was my question. Do we do it now, or do we wait 2 years till the end of the second renewal extension? Because at that point, we are wide open and ready for all new terminology. And that's kind of what I was expecting to hear, that's when we should probably do it. Because if we do open the door and, for all intents and purposes, basically void our extension option, now we're vulnerable and we could end up in the same boat Milford is. I agree with you, Missy.
Andy, one other thought too, and kind of in line with what Missy just said, I think is the other part of it too. Although, and I like the the direction of it for the fairness part. I would think that we'd probably want to be giving a heads up to our fellow departments ahead of it.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? So that's the other thing. And so even if it was something we thought we could do now, I don't know that there'd be enough time to allow for that. But if it's something we're thinking about at the end of this contract in a couple of years, we got to, I think, it's probably not too early to start planting the seeds now.
Since he has a lot of time on his hands and his iPad at home, I will ask Mike, and I believe I've asked him this before, but he's been very busy. Right now, I will ask him if he could give us, because he has access to everything that he needs to for his job, to give us a rough idea of how many municipal dumpsters, roughly what the costs are to the town currently, and so that we can express, just as you said, to each department so they can plan on their budgets, because we know how the budgets go a year in advance. So if it's, I don't know, $10,000, they need to know about that so they can plan accordingly. And you're right, Tom. So I will see if I can get that answer from Mike. I'm writing myself a note.
AJ, if I may.
Your turn.
I'm in agreement. I certainly wouldn't want to blindside anybody, and I certainly don't want to cause the taxpayers any burden. However, right now we're putting together, I believe it's 22's budget is what we're working on. I would like to see this implemented for 23's budget. And, you know, just negotiate it between the municipal dumpsters and ourselves as to what a fair portion is for them versus, you know, taking it off the back of the users. Not trying to hurt anybody, cause anybody any harm. I mean, in the end, taxpayers are paying for it anyway. But, you know, we know the hazardous waste day and other things that we open up to the whole town are on the backs of the users. I'd like to see it sort of implemented over time. So, you know, like I said, I believe we're working on 22's budget right now. So I'd like to, you know, see it implemented for 23's budget. And that gives everybody plenty of time to work it in, you know, to their numbers so that it's not a shock or, you know, it doesn't hurt anybody. I don't think we should wait until the end of our 2-year extensions. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
You don't think we should wait for implementing it or for getting the word out?
I would like to get some feedback from Mike, the way you know, with what you just presented. But I would like to see it implemented when we're working on FY23's budget, if I have all our years right. Like I said, I believe we're working on FY22 right now, so I wouldn't want to throw it in now. That would not be fair. But to throw it in to the different town departments for FY23, and let them, I mean, that gives them more than a year's notice. Or at least a year's notice before they have to figure it in. I think that's ample time. We've been letting them ride for free for a long time. And you heard Kim, it's a no-brainer. It's not a problem.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman.
So FY23, does that start on July 1st of 23? Missy?
No,
When does it start?
July 1st of 2022.
Okay, so that would be, again, like we were just talking about, Alan, and you actually were in agreement that we shouldn't leave ourselves open to letting Harvey break that contract, if you will. We really don't want to subject ourselves to that vulnerability. Right?
No, I agree. We don't want to subject ourselves to that vulnerability. We'd like to do the 2-year extensions, no doubt about it. However, there's no reason that the town departments can't kick in to what we're paying. And that would lower the user fees.
I see.
I'm not, this doesn't really involve Harvey at all. It involves how we as
in-house.
Right, in-house collect the money. So right now we're not collecting anything from the municipalities.
Yeah,
what I'm proposing is we start to get the municipality departments to kick in. We take that off the top, and then we're able to lower the user fees, and we're able to make it more fair, for lack of better words.
Are you talking about partial payment from the municipalities? And how do you decide that?
Well, you're going to get some research from Mike as to how many dumpsters there are, how many tips there are. I mean, I think that, we know how much it is a ton. I think we could come up with a fair formula, present it to the different departments, let them, kick it back at us. I mean, again, we're not trying to hurt anybody. All we're saying to all these departments is, hey, you got to kick something in. You've been riding for free for a long time. We're not looking to make money on this. I mean, we might come back and let's say Parks Department, it's $500 for the season, and Parks Department says they can afford 4. Fine, we'll take the 4. That's still $400 off the backs of the users.
Right.
And again, we're trying to implement this slowly. We're not trying. We don't want anybody to feel the full hit. So we come back to town hall and we say your portion, according to these calculations, is $1,000 a year, and Kim comes back and says we can afford $750. Fine, we'll take the $750. It's $750 the users don't have to come up with.
I see room for confusion and not amicable. I understand and understand the easing into it, the burden. I just don't know if it's doable.
Well, we've been talking about this for a while. It's no secret that the users are shouldering more of a burden than they should be.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of when we're going to do something about it as representatives of the Board of Health. And, it needs a little research. It needs some discussion. It needs some feedback from these departments that have been riding for free. And it's not like they've been trying to cheat us. This is just the way it's been.
I wonder if we could, because we have a long time between now and then, maybe ask for representatives of each department, what individually, so that we're not having mayhem. 1 week we have highway, 1 week we have police, 1 week we have fire, and we just express to them what we're discussing and what we're proposing and get some input so we can come up with a responsible plan. Tom, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that last thought is a good idea. I wonder if it's good to splinter it, though. Ideally, I know it would be a lot of people on the same call, but ideally, it's always nice when everybody's hearing the same thing at the same time. So ideally, if we could orchestrate a call like this that had a representative from each of the affected groups all on the same call at the same time, I think would be the most efficient. The one other aspect I would throw out in all this, and I actually was going to bring it up when we were at the FinCom meeting last week, and I neglected to, was the idea that supposedly right now we have a revolving account in place for the Board of Health.
Yeah.
And what has been not determined, I think, and Missy might have some insight on it, is the amount of money that is going to be allocated to such a revolving account. Because as far as I last knew, we didn't have this revolving account. In my mind, it's still a mystery as to when that actually got approved. So that's a variable to consider as well, in this kind of going in line with what Alan was, I think, trying to do to get each of the departments to kind of pony up their fair share. I think that would probably create an accounting nightmare from a municipal perspective. But So to your point, Andy, trying to get the representatives all together to let them know that, hey, we're going to look to modify services down the road, and we're going to eliminate the pickup from other departments, and we're going to focus it to the users only. And now your departments are going to have to figure out what to do to get your trash picked up. Back to you.
Accounting nightmare was the frustration I was having in my mind, trying to put to words. I appreciate, and it's thoughtful what Alan was suggesting, and I like it, but I do believe it would create a nightmare. Missy, I've got a question for you. What do you think would be, if this was possible to do? I don't think that it is, but keeping everything the way that it is it possible for the Board of Health to bill each department individually for trash services?
What I would do, what I would recommend you do is find out from Mike what the cost is for all the departments. And then when it comes to budget time, you make sure you have that money in your budget. But when it comes to creating your trash billing amount, you don't include that dollar amount. You take it out. So it's still in your budget, and everyone would still get picked up, and they'd still be harvesting, they'd still be part of the contract. But when it comes time to figure out what your trash fees are, and say it's $10,000 a year, whatever, for the towns to have their departments picked up. Well, when it comes time to figure out your trash bill, you minus out of all the things you put into what the costs and everything, you take out 10,000, so that's in your budget, but the ratepayers aren't paying for it, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
It does, but where's that money come from? All the other departments chipping in?
It would just be part of your budget. It would be whatever the townspeople vote on for your trash, part of your trash collection and part of your trash disposal. So you wouldn't.
Okay, all right, I'm following you now. I see.
So
But,
you wouldn't physically get a payment of any sort from the departments. It would just be or additional money put into your budget that would cover the cost of collecting and processing and disposing of recycling and trash.
And we would credit that figure, that $10,000, towards the subscribers, split it up through all 1,600 subscribers, and everybody would get their trash bill reduced. They're happy. The municipalities, the board budget departments are paying their fair share per se, because it's coming out of the I got it.
Yeah.
I follow. Yeah, that's a good idea, I think. Tom, any ideas on that?
Well, I like the train of thought there. I think that and I don't know enough about the inner workings of our municipal accounting here, but I would think that the line item cost would need to be shown individually under that department for that expense, as opposed to bulking it under our budget and then taking it out mathematically. Missy, maybe you can, what's your thought? But that's what I'm thinking for people when they look at the budgets, when it comes time for budget review. I think each department's going to have to show that somewhere, that they're paying for it out of their budget.
Like running a business, they need to show deductions.
Yeah. Missy, thoughts?
Sorry, I did something wonky to my screen. I don't know. Actually, I don't know how that would work.
This would have been a discussion for FinCom, probably. Maybe we could invite them to a meeting at a later date. Alan, what's your thoughts on this?
I don't know the exact accounting methods involved in doing this, and I certainly want to provide trash service, and I feel it would be beneficial to everybody for for us to provide the municipalities with trash service with the same company rather than them looking for their own hauler. I just think this is a direction that we really need to move in, knowing that what's happening in the trash industry in general. And, you know, like, again, for quite a few years now, we've had this discussion that the ratepayers are shouldering more of the burden than they should be. So I'm just interested in moving in the right direction without causing anybody any grief. And again, I do not understand the exact accounting procedures that are involved in making it work, but that money should come off the top, and then the users pay what's left, which is essentially what Missy is saying. Back to you, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly, much discussion again for another subject, so we're going to be quite busy on future meetings. Let's invite FinCom to get their thoughts on how the inner workings of this money in the town government works. And Tom, I wish you had thought about it, or suggested it, or I wish I thought of it, or Alan or Missy, somebody about that revolving budget when we were on the FinCom call. It's too bad we didn't, because that was a perfect segue. Even though they had an agenda in business, we could have at least broached the subject. That's too bad we didn't think of that.
Well, it's
Okay.
only because it wasn't an actual agenda item. I didn't want to segue. It was in the back of my mind, and I was on the tip of my tongue. I opted not to expand the conversation to get away from the actual review. But, you know, specifically a meeting on this topic, I'm with you on having FinCom and us discuss the topic specifically, for sure.
Okay. That's a first, by the way.
What, that I held back?
They wrote this date down in time, just so you know.
I have to do it more often than you think, but because I don't say it, you don't know that I did it.
Let me backtrack. If we're done with this for now, I think we're all in agreement about the extension letter to Harvey's. We're only going to go for 1 year, and we're going to take that last line off, and we're going to extend for 1 year currently, and that's it for now. Do we need a motion on this, Missy?
You can do one if you want, just to, I would do a motion. Yeah, because you're gonna vote to exercise the extension of the one year of the 2. So yeah, I would say a motion.
Tom, could I have a motion, please?
I motion that the Board of Health formally submit a letter of confirmation to E.L. Harvey and Son that the board will take approve the 1 year, the first of the 2 year extensions. That's my motion.
Alan,
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye. And if I could have one favor of Missy to satisfy my OCD, could you, the B in board, could you capitalize that for me?
Sure. Absolutely. I was gonna rewrite it and then send it off to you anyway, so.
Oh, well, I think the format's fine. Other than that, I think it's.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Not a problem.
Okay,
Tom,
what?
Tom, that stings.
What? You know.
That B stings.
Oh, hey.
Oh, boy. All right.
Coming over my head.
Quick question. Question on 2 of these things. This letter, first of all, and I don't mind doing it. I will certainly sign as Andrew Fisk, Chairman, Mendon Board of Health. Are both of you signatures? Do you think not required? But do you think that you would welcome them? Would you like to do it or no? Extra, so all 3 signatures is what I'm trying to spit out.
Yeah, I'll do whatever you want.
Same here.
So what do you guys think? 3 signatures or just the 1? Doesn't matter.
Let's defer to
I
Missy.
think the
Missy,
one
what do
is
you think?
sufficient. especially where the board voted.
Should be all three. Is that what you're saying, Alan?
No, I think where we just voted, I think your signature would be sufficient because
Done.
the vote
Done.
the vote is now on record.
Yep, okay. Back to the VNA letter. Back to the VNA letter. Because we are, as a group, requesting more information, 3 signatures or mine? Tom?
I would think in that case, I would think it'd be nice to see all 3 for that one.
Alan?
I'm on board.
Okay, so Missy, you're gonna make the changes. Is that gonna go back to lawyer, Missy, or are you gonna do the changes?
I'm gonna tell Cindy that you guys agreed to this and this to make it in a format that can be sent off to the VNA.
Okay, and then it's gonna go back to you and you're gonna print it and the 3 of us can sign it, is that right?
If you guys are talking about signing the addendum, the 3 signatures.
Not for Harvey, for VNA.
VNA, you're talking about signing the actual physical addendum.
Yes, once
Yes,
it's corrected by Cindy.
Yep, and that, yes, I can tell her to add all 3 signatures, spaces for 3 signatures for the 3 of you.
That would be great. I think it would carry more meaning that she knows that it's not just, more clarity, I think. That makes me feel better. I don't mind signing it singularly, but I think that all 3 is better.
And along with that, Andy, the same line would apply to the letter that our work a draft on that is going to be included with that addendum, all 3 signatures, right?
Please.
Okay.
Say yes.
Thank you.
Consistency.
Yes.
That's what we need, consistency.
Okay. Is that it on the agenda, Missy?
Yep, I just have one more quick thing. 32 Park Street needs a local upgrade, which requires an abutter notification. I talked to Andy about this. We are setting our next meeting date for March 10th. This will give the abutter, they have to do a 10-day prior to the meeting notification. This gives them plenty of time to do so. And we'll start at 6 o'clock.
If I remember correctly, it was only one abutter. Is that correct, Missy?
Correct.
Okay, Margaret Bacon is going to take care of that?
Yes, she sent me a copy of the letter. I sent it off to Tom Ryder, and he said it was good.
Excellent, thank you.
And then after that, at that time of the year, after that meeting will be like in the middle of March, and you guys can then decide if at that point in time you want to go back to a 7 o'clock meeting time.
All right, we can discuss it at that point.
Hey, I just thought of something.
One thing,
With regard to
Al?
the,
Go ahead, Tom.
so if the letter was intended to kind of address our concerns about the addendum. So I think I misstated. I had originally was including the letter with the addendum, but if we go ahead and sign the addendum and we send the letter at the same time, there's no, she's got a signed addendum, so she really doesn't have to respond to the letter. So I just realized the letter needs to go to them before the addendum.
Yep.
Right, okay, thank you.
Alan, did you have something else to add?
yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up just real quick. You mentioned, having all the boards, the different departments that we supply trash to, getting together on one call. AJ, I think you do a great job orchestrating one of these calls. So you really do a good job. I don't think we'd be talking over each other. And I think we can get something done. You seem to be well organized with your list of who's on the meeting and making sure that everybody gets a turn.
Well,
I think that was it.
Thank you for that, Alan. I certainly do not do it on my own. I do it with the help of you two and our senior administrative assistant. She's our go-to. She has all our answers. So it's a group effort, and I thank you for acknowledging that, Alan.
You earned it.
When we have that meeting, someone on the board, and I've got someone in mind, I know who's going to do it, is going to say, why are you doing this at this time? Why are you all of a sudden? So we got to have some answers for them. It's not all of a sudden, first of all, but second of all, it's the right thing, just like Wilfred Brimley used to say. It's the right thing to do. So just try to play devil's advocate.
AJ, before we have that meeting, I would be very interested in what you find out from Mike and his numbers, because that, is obviously going to be some very important information to give the different town departments. And again, I don't want them to feel as though they have to run and get their own hauler. We're not trying to do that. We're just trying to spread the load.
And I don't think, when you mentioned that earlier, I really don't think that they want to do that. They can if they want, certainly. But if they do, they're probably going to pay a premium rate for one truck to come in, one service company to come in and service one dumpster at one building, or maybe all of them. And if Harvey loses all of them, they won't be happy about it, but it is what it is. I really would hope, I'll put it this way, I would hope that they would stay with Harvey.
It's probably not going to be that big a difference because they have to use a hauler that's already licensed in town, already picking up in town.
Yeah, there's numerous ones that do that, though.
Right. So I don't know, I don't know what their rates are. I mean, we know that we provide our users and our municipality with a good rate. We've been very, very fortunate. But again, I don't want to chase anybody away or feel as though we're abandoning them.
That's on them at that point.
Free. Yeah, they've been riding for free. We just want to make it as fair as we can for the people we're responsible to. Thank you.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly why. Okay, could I have a motion to dismiss, please?
Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Yeah, that's
Second.
That's what I meant. Seconded.
Thank you all.
See you March 10th. Thank you, Missy.
Thank you all. Good night. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good
See you
night.
guys later.
Thank you, Alan.